All right, let's dive right into the mind of one of philosophy's most notorious thinkers, Friedrich Nietzsche. This is a man who didn't just question our ideas of right and wrong, he put the very concept of morality on trial.
And he kicks things off with a question that's designed to shake you up a bit. What if good and evil aren't these universal truths we discover? What if they were actually invented, made up by people for a very specific purpose? To really get Nietzsche, it helps to stop thinking of him as some stuffy philosopher and start seeing him as a detective. He basically showed up at the crime scene of morality, looked around and said, okay, I'm not buying the official story. I'm going to find out what really happened here.
So, where does any good detective begin? You question the basic assumptions. You look for cracks in the foundation. And when Nietzsche started poking around the foundations of traditional morality, he found they were, well, incredibly shaky.
He argued that the whole system, the Judeo-Christian framework that was dominant, is built on a very specific and, in his view, a completely false idea of what a human being actually is.
So our detective finds three major weak spots in the story we tell ourselves. First, this idea that we have free will and choose our actions. Second, the assumption that we actually understand our own motives, that our self is transparent. And third, the belief that we're all similar enough that one single moral code could possibly apply to everyone. He figures if he can knock down these three pillars, the whole building comes crashing down.
So to counter that first pillar, Nietzsche puts forward this idea of fatalism. Think of it like this. An apple tree is just going to grow apples. It can't decide to grow oranges one day. He believed we're kind of the same. We all have these deep-seated type facts about us, our psychology, our physiology, that set us on a fixed path. And this leads to a pretty wild conclusion, right? Free will is an illusion. For Nietzsche, all your conscious thoughts, the reasons you tell yourself you're doing something, they're just bubbles rising to the surface. The real action is happening deep down, in this ocean of unconscious drives that are actually calling the shots.
And boom, just like that, he takes down the second pillar. If our real motives are hidden from us, deep in the unconscious, then how can our self be transparent? It's impossible. As he says right here, the stuff we're aware of, our intentions, that's all just surface and skin. The real story is underneath.
Okay, so after poking holes in the psychology, our detective puts on his historian hat. He starts using what he calls the genealogical method. Basically, he becomes a sort of archaeologist for our ideas, digging down to see where concepts like evil actually came from. And the origins are surprising.
His investigation uncovers what are basically two rival moral systems. First up, you have master morality. This was invented by the powerful, the nobles. For them, good was easy. It just meant us, strong, proud, powerful. And bad? That was just anyone who was weak, pathetic, not like them. But then you get slave morality. This was born from the oppressed, the weak. And they did something brilliant and devious. They flipped the whole script. Suddenly, the master's strength was labeled evil. And their own weakness, being humble, meek, and obedient, was rebranded as good. So what was the psychological fuel for this incredible transformation? Nietzsche gives it a special name, ressentiment. Now, this isn't just simple resentment. It's a deep, festering, creative kind of spite. It's the bitterness of the powerless, who can't get revenge in real life, so they get it imaginatively, by inventing a moral system where their oppressors will be punished and they will be rewarded. And this is a really key difference. The master morality starts by saying yes to itself. It's an affirmation of its own power and excellence. But slave morality, as Nietzsche points out here, can only exist by first saying no to something outside itself. It needs an enemy, an evil other, to even define what it is. It's totally reactive. The detective's investigation now picks up another clue, a big one: the feeling of guilt. Today, we think of it as this little voice inside our head, our conscience, right? But Nietzsche's historical digging shows that it started out as something way more practical and, well, less mysterious. So get this. Originally, the German word for guilt, which is Schuld, also just meant debt. It was a business transaction, basically. If you owed someone something and didn't pay up, the creditor had the right to punish you, to take payment in the form of your suffering. It wasn't about sin, it was literally about balancing the books.
So how did we get from a financial debt to a guilty conscience? Well, Nietzsche's theory is that as society got more organized, it forced us to suppress our natural aggressive instincts. You couldn't just go around conquering and dominating anymore. But all that energy had to go somewhere. So it turned inward. We started directing it against ourselves. And this, he says, is the birth of the bad conscience. Humanity essentially became its own creditor and its own debtor, stuck in this endless loop of self-punishment. That nagging feeling of guilt you get? That voice telling you you're not good enough? For Nietzsche, that's just humanity's instinct for cruelty, now aimed squarely at itself. So let's recap the case file. We've got a morality built on a faulty psychology, born from a spirit of vengeful resentment, and powered by internalized cruelty. So what's the point of it all? This is where our detective delivers his shocking verdict. This leads to what is probably Nietzsche's most explosive claim. This one-size-fits-all herd morality isn't just not helpful for everyone, he argues it's actively harmful. Specifically, it's poison for what he calls higher men, those rare, exceptional individuals who have the potential for real greatness. And man, Nietzsche does not pull his punches here. He calls the idea of equality a poisonous doctrine. Why? Because he thought greatness required a sense of rank, of distance between people. By pushing for universal equality, he believes morality just levels everyone down to the lowest common denominator. And at the end of the day, that's its true function. Herd morality is a weapon. It's the tool the majority, the herd, uses to keep the exceptional few in line. By making virtues out of things like meekness and fitting in, it tames the very qualities, like wild ambition and powerful creativity, that lead to anything truly new or great. Okay, so if morality is a weapon designed to stifle greatness, what are we supposed to do about it? This brings us to the final act of Nietzsche's whole project, and it's his most famous idea. The biggest takeaway from this whole investigation is a radical one. Values are not real things you find out in the world, like mountains or rivers. They're just tools, human inventions created for a purpose. And here's the kicker. If they were invented, they can be looked at, they can be questioned, and they can even be thrown out. And this is his ultimate challenge, what he called the revaluation of all values. He's calling for those strong, higher individuals to see herd morality for what it is, a system that says no to life, and to find the courage to smash those old values and create new ones. Values that say a powerful, thundering yes to life, to power, and to creating your own meaning. And that leaves us with one final question. Because Nietzsche's investigation might have started by looking at all of humanity, but it ends by looking right at you. The values you live by, the ones that guide your choices every single day, are they really yours? Or were they just handed to you by someone else, for reasons you've never even thought to question?